Now, over the last few days, violence has erupted in Gaza over the issue of the U.S. moving its embassy to Jerusalem. Now, shortly after that move, Palestinian protesters decided to hold demonstrations and marches at the border, which, has led to some conflict. Now, what happened when these Palestinian protesters marched on the border? Israeli forces basically opened fire. They killed 58 people, now up to 60, and ended up wounding over 2,000. Now, in response to what had happened, what's being called a massacre, the UN has called for an investigation into the deaths. Now, I think that's fair. You want to look into it. You want to see who's at fault. Okay, was there Hamas hiding among the protesters? Were they actually endangering Israeli lives? Were they an invading army set to destroy Israel? Okay, let the UN look into it. Well, the Trump administration decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to look into this at all. In fact, we're going to use our power. We're going to completely block this entire thing. Let's not look into it. Let's just go with what Benjamin Netanyahu says. This is a guy who has constantly lied in order to continue doing expansionist policies for the right-wing government of Israel. So, now, you might wonder why the Trump administration is protecting the government of Israel from investigations that could prove the Israeli side of things, right? That they're just defending themselves against the violent extremism of Hamas. I mean, wouldn't that go to actually helping the Israeli cause instead of having the world basically denounce them for what they did in response to these demonstrations? The killing, the massacre of nearly 60 people. Well, it's because the Trump administration has a lot in common with the right-wing government of Israel, with Netanyahu. Now, it's got nothing to do with politics, however. It has everything to do with fundamentalism, fundamentalist Christianity. Now, basically, fundamentalist Christians, evangelicals, have a belief that Jerusalem is supposed to be the capital of Israel. Now, it's currently not. It's Tel Aviv. Now, the U.S., in moving our embassy, says, no, we actually do recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And that, of course, is a big step towards that fundamentalist Christian ideology. Now, that belief that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel is not shared by the rest of the world, and for good reason. Because right now, it's actually, Jerusalem is more of a divided city because there are 3 different faiths that have a stake, that have a claim in that area. For one, again, this is the Christian Holy Land. It's also the Jewish Holy Land. And by the way, it's also the Muslim Holy Land. So you've got 3 religions with a big vested interest in that city. Evangelicals more so believe that Holy Land had been promised to the Jews by God. And therefore, well, it's got to be the capital of Israel. So, look, what does this have to do with Trump and his support of the right-wing Israeli government? Well, it turns out that Trump has a lot of support among these evangelical voters. So he's like, I don't know, they believe it's the capital of Israel. Sure, well, okay, let's do that. That was a campaign promise that I made, and then I'm going to do it. And that's what's going to happen. Now, let me give you a poll here of what evangelicals believe. That kind of shows you why Trump is doing the way what he's doing, and why the rest of the right wing also believes that same thing. Now, 2/3 of respondents in a Lifeway research poll said that this promise, the promise of the land of Israel, the Holy Land, being given to the Jews by God, is that this promise is eternal. So the sons of Abraham and the descendants, Abraham and the descendants of Abraham, they're 100% entitled to this land. So you can't challenge it. You can't divide it. You can't say that we have a 2-state solution. No, all that land belongs to Israel. Well, if we do that, then we're never, ever going to have peace. ever in our time. But see, they don't care about peace because they say, well, God can't be wrong. God wants this, so that's what we're going to do. Endless war, endless conflict. That's the problem, right? Now, that's, of course, why evangelicals applaud the embassy, the return of the embassy to Jerusalem is a great thing. Because they think, well, that's just closer. We're now closer to getting Israel back, the entirety of Israel back for the Jewish people. But here's the thing. This isn't actually about the Jewish people. See, here's where we get into weird prophecy, especially the end times prophecy. According to Pastor Nate Pyle, talking to Newsweek, he said, what kickstarts the end times into motion is Israel's political boundaries being reestablished to what God promised the Israelites according to the Bible. Now, that is, as I said, when you start talking about the end times, you start getting into some crazy shit. The Lifeway poll found that 80% of evangelicals believed that the creation of Israel was a fulfillment of biblical prophecy that would bring about Christ's return. Now, this is something that they've been chasing for centuries. Every generation of fundamentalist Christians believed that they were going to be there to witness the return of Jesus. And then, of course, that developed into a belief in the rapture, where Jesus literally sucks everybody up into heaven. So there's a lot of people in America that believe, yes, the stuff that we're doing in the Middle East right now, the stuff that we're doing especially in Israel, supporting the right-wing government of Israel and Netanyahu, well, that's just a fulfillment of prophecy. And it's also, of course, goes back to the belief that Israel belongs to the Jews because God said so, and that we can't have any sort of change, we can't have any sort of compromise, we can't have a two-state solution, we can't have peace. The Palestinians got to go because Israel owns the whole thing. So that's what's going on here. Okay. Now, another poll conducted by Pew Research back in 2003 kind of backs that up. They found that about a third of Americans said the existence of Israel fulfilled biblical prophecy. More than 6 in 10 evangelicals agreed, and so did more than half of all black respondents. Well, that's interesting because we know that the black community is actually very religious as well. Now, the Lifeway poll also asked evangelical respondents to what factors contribute to their support for the state of Israel. More than 6 in 10 cited God's pledge to Abraham. The third most cited reason was that the existence of Israel was necessary for fulfilling prophecy. More than half of evangelicals said that that was the reason that they supported Israel's existence. So there are a lot of evangelicals that think, no, you don't understand. What's going on in the Middle East is fantastic. All this war and conflict and death, yes, it's great. That means we're getting closer to Jesus. We're getting closer to the return. Now, the ironic thing here is that's why they have a huge support for Israel, but it's not because they actually like or support Jewish people. No, the prophecy is actually really terrible for Jews. In it, the Jews either convert to Christianity or die, along with all the members of all the other religions. If you don't convert to Christianity, if you're a Muslim, well, you die. You die in the end times, Jesus kills you. Or if you're if you're a Jewish person, or if you're a Buddhist, if you're, an atheist, gone. You're dead. The only people coming up to heaven with us are the believers. This is a terrible prophecy. So, look, man, most of these evangelicals, many of them who support Trump by a heavy, heavy margin, only support Israel to bring about the end of the world. This is a problem. Now, look, I think that Israel has a right to exist. But I also believe that Palestine has a right to exist. I believe that we should have two independent sovereign states, Israel and Palestine. That would make sense. And it would actually go a long way to solve the problems that's going on in that region today. We would actually have some peace. But unfortunately, you have the religious right. You even have a lot of people who or some on the left even, who are like, no, we're going to support Israel 100%. That's why we're against anything that has to do with BDS. And of course, the right-wing government of Israel, they're like, no, we don't want a two-state solution. We don't want peace. We want what God promised us. So in the end, that's going to create more conflict, more war, which is going to kill more people, Palestinians and Jewish people alike. And unfortunately, that is the situation that we find ourselves in. And that evangelical support for Trump, by the way, and the reason that he's doing it is this: he's just trying to please his base. He doesn't believe in any of this nonsense. He has no core beliefs. He has no... You think he's a religious person? You think he's sent here by God? Absolutely not. But they believe it. And so that's why they're there. Make no mistakes. There will be no end times. The decision to allow Israel to continue to expand, build illegal settlements, and kill unarmed civilians for doing protests and demonstrations will ultimately continue to fuel this conflict that has no purpose and no end. We actually have to get a two-state solution. We have to stop the violence. We have to stop the madness before it gets worse. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.